With books being such a large part of my life, I obviously have a lot of stories that revolve around them. So for today's video, I thought it would be fun to do something a little bit different and do sort of a get to know me video through some personal or anecdotal stories about the books that sit on my shelves. If you're new here, welcome, happy to have you. And without further ado, let's get into some stories about books. The first book I'm going to talk about is The Giver by Lois Lowry. This is such a special book to me for so many reasons. This is actually the original copy from the early 90s that I read from as a child. So if you're unfamiliar with this book, a lot of kids in the United States had to read this, and this was actually the first novel that I was assigned in elementary school to read on my own from start to finish, and it is the book that made me fall in love with reading books. So it's always been a really special one to me. I love science fiction and dystopian novels in general, but I feel like this is such a good one because it's told through the perspective of youth and understanding and learning to witness the world around you and ask questions about it. So I just love it so much. I try to read it at least once a year, and I actually have a more special copy of it as well that I got. I think I got this maybe like 3 or 4 years ago, and it's the Easton Press signed edition. So it's signed by Lois Lowry. Love it so much, so just thought I would share that one. Okay, the next book I'm going to talk about is a little bit of a funny story, I guess. It is the first edition signed copy of Shutter Island that I have. Now, I also have another copy of this, the signed Easton Press version, which seems a bit unnecessary to have both, and it is, and that's kind of the story that I'm going to share. So I was in a relationship with someone once upon a time, and this wasn't his first rodeo with books. He knew I collected Easton Press. He knew that they were expensive, but I believe this was the first one that he had ever seen that was a signed edition. So I went over to him. It was almost my birthday, so it's kind of like wink wink, you know. And I told him, I said, oh my gosh, they have one of my favorite books of all time, Shutter Island, and it's signed. And he looks at it and he's kind of like, why is it so expensive? Like, I don't get it. Like, never heard of this book. And it took him a minute to process that this was Shutter Island, as in the movie that he loved, Shutter Island, the Scorsese movie with Leonardo DiCaprio. I could tell he wasn't putting two and two together for a while. He finally got it and was like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know, Easton Press had this and it's signed. Wow, that's so cool. So he did in fact order the book for himself. Yeah, so we lived in the same home. We literally had offices right across the hall from each other. So it seemed a bit unnecessary and ridiculous to me to go ahead and order the signed Shutter Island copy from Easton Press because he had already done it for himself. We lived in the same house, so technically it would have been our book, except he really wanted to keep it in his office and he didn't want anybody to touch it. So I let it go. I moved on. I forgot about it for quite some time. And then I was on the internet one day browsing used books as I do, and I came across this one. Someone was letting this go, and it wasn't inexpensive, but they were letting it go for what I felt like it was a really good price for what it is. So I went ahead and ordered it for myself. I felt like it was different enough, than his copy. And I remember being super excited when I got it. I went to show him, and this man was jealous. He wanted this copy. He was like, what, mine isn't a first edition like that. Like, yours is cooler than mine. And I was like, are you kidding me? So anyways, I just thought it was such an annoyingly funny story that I ended up sharing this to my mother. And then that year for Christmas, she actually ordered me my own copy of the signed Easton Press one. So I have both. Like I said, unnecessary and ridiculous, but I just thought I would kind of share the story of how I acquired them. The next book I'm going to share is also a little funny, but for a very different reason. And this is from my grandmother's collection. So this is her Gregg Shorthand Dictionary, and it's super old. It's, let's see. So her copy is from 1930, but it was originally published, it looks like, in 1901. So really old. This is from her school days, and she had a very eclectic collection of everything really, but books especially. She had tons of encyclopedic books on birds and nature, and then she had her novels, and then she kept all of her, school books. So whenever somebody in the family would come across them in her attic or something, they would give them to me because they know, I love these. And so one year for my birthday, my aunt wrapped this up. I unwrapped it, was so excited. I was kind of looking through it. My grandma tended to write, you know, doodles and poems and notes. Sometimes she'd do little drawings too. And so I opened it up and I see this weird drawing of what kind of looked like a really bad drawing of a spider. Well, it wasn't a drawing at all, actually. It was like a literal deceased spider that somebody had smashed in here probably decades earlier. So, ugh, like super gross. It took me way too long to figure out that it was not a drawing. But anyway, so every time I see this sitting on my shelf, I just remember opening it and how funny that was. Okay, the next book I'm going to talk about is this book called People's Law. Have you ever heard of it? Probably not. So this bookstore that my husband and I would frequent, a used bookstore, this was in there one day and I wasn't really looking for anything in particular, but it caught my eye. I collect a lot of legal texts. I'd never heard of it before. I started flipping through it and thought, wow, this sounds actually really interesting. But it was, I think it was like $200. Let's see if it still says, yeah, $200. And I remember just being like, I wasn't really like looking to buy something like that day. So I didn't buy it, mainly because I felt like it's such a random book, it's on a random shelf, no one in the world is gonna buy it, which I should have known better, because anytime I say that or think that, somebody then immediately goes and buys the book. So I left the bookstore and immediately kind of had this like gut sinking feeling that somebody was going to come in and buy it. Now the bookstore had just closed. We like left when they were closing for the day and we were going out of town for several days on some trip. And so I remember thinking like, someone is going to buy it. We can't wait until we get back from the trip. So we actually went back to the bookstore the very next morning, right when they opened before we left for our trip. And what do you know? The book was not on the shelf. So I'm asking people, I'm like, this book, The People's Law, have you seen it? They have no clue what I'm talking about. They have to look it up in their system. And then the guy says, oh, yes, we do actually have it. It's on hold currently for this woman who comes in all the time. She put a deposit down. She's going to come and purchase it in a few days. So we can't sell it to you. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, like I just was frustrated with myself because I'm like, if I knew that I wanted it last night, why didn't I just do it? So we leave the bookstore, we go on our trip, and I'm searching for this book high and low online. Can't find a copy of it anywhere, except there is one copy available on eBay. And I'm like, okay, it looks like the same, you know, era. It looks like it's in good condition. It was a little bit more expensive. I think it was around $250, maybe $225, something like that. So my husband's like, okay, let's get it. You know, well, can't miss out again, right? So we order it, and I'm looking at the listing after we ordered it, like in anticipation, right? And I noticed that it says it's shipping from Las Vegas, which is where this bookstore was. And so then I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. Is this the eBay page of the bookstore? Because the name on the eBay page wasn't the same. So I did some digging and I was like 99% sure that this was the goddamn bookstore. So I'm thinking, okay, one of two things are going to happen. They're either going to cancel my order because this woman's going to come buy it, or they're just going to send it to me and then this woman's going to lose out on it. So as I'm sure you can tell, based on the fact that I have the book, I was too afraid to ask. So I'm hoping, because this is like a reputable bookstore, and especially because they said she's a regular, I'm hoping that they reached out to her first and said, hey, someone wants to buy this. They placed an order online. Or do you still want it? And then she said no. That's what I'm hoping happened, because if not, this book like carries a lot of guilt for me. But I love it so much, and every time I see it, it makes me so happy. I'm so happy I have it. But I just cannot stop thinking about that poor woman. I'm like, I really hope they just didn't send it to me and left her hanging. That would not be very nice, but I'm so happy. I love this book so much. So I'm very, very happy that I ended up getting it. The next book I'm going to talk about is this book on German radio propaganda. Now, my husband and I went to a used bookstore in Arizona. We do this kind of thing a lot, can you tell? So we went to the store that we'd never been to before, and honestly, from the outside looking in, it didn't really look that special. Looked much smaller than it actually was and looked very run down, but we got inside and To this day, this is the best bookstore I have ever been to in terms of the physical copies that they had. If you're a collector and you're looking for something like a really rare Folio Society Easton Press, something from like, I don't even know, like the early 1800s, like you're gonna find whatever it is that you're looking for, and you're going to find the best available copy for the best price in that store. It was incredible. The only problem is the owner of the store was peculiar. I'm not going to say he was rude. I just think like socially inept, perhaps. So even though the bookstore was amazing, it was a little chaotic, a little disorganized. There's just piles of books everywhere. And we see this cabinet off to the side. We want to get to it. So we're trying to get over there, but there's so many books everywhere. It's difficult to get to. The owner pops his head up and finally says, "Can I help you?" And we both kind of looked at him and said, "Yeah, you know, those books over there, that cabinet, we just wanted to see it." He goes, "No." Said it just like that. And we were like, okay. So at this point, it was so awkward. I didn't know what to do. And I didn't want to ask him anything else. So we just left and didn't buy this book that I saw that I knew I had wanted. I saw it and was like, I'll come back to that. We left. And of course, when we left, I'm thinking the same thing, like someone's going to come in and buy this book now. And now I'm upset. And there were other copies of this available online, but this was definitely the best condition copy for the price that was out there. So we called the bookstore. So I'm like, maybe we can just have him ship it, you know. And a young woman answers and she sounds lovely. So I'm like, let's go back and get it from her. So I'm trying to explain to her on the phone where it is so she can like put it up front and hold it for us. And she can't find the book anywhere. I'm like, it's next to this pile over here and that over there. And there's this weird cabinet with a key, and couldn't find it. So we get there and we go to the front and she is not there. She's nowhere to be found. This employee, this mystery woman, gone. It is the grumpy old man, and he was a little bit nicer to us the second time, but still just very odd. But he did get this for us, and it was a good price, and I'm very, very happy I have it. But I always think about that bookstore, especially because after we left, I looked up the reviews, and the reviews all say exactly what I just said, which is like, best bookstore ever, looks are deceiving, go inside, you won't be, you know, disappointed. However, the owner, ... So anyways, those are my 5 stories about books that sit on my shelves. Let me know if you liked this video and would like to see more videos like it. And until then, I hope you have a great day, and I will see you very soon.